Today I was thinking about those people. You know who those people are. You know them, I know them. Those people being the people who believe everything is okay. The same people that you associate with at work, people at your churches, your neighbors, your personal friends, your relatives. These same people who tell you everything is okay are the same people who are working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week and just getting by. The same people are working 1, 2, or 3 side hustles just to keep their heads above water. These are the same people living paycheck to paycheck, the same people living on credit cards, yet they're telling you and I everything is okay. Ask them if they read this article yesterday on the Wall Street Journal titled, Fed adds $110 billion to financial system in latest transaction. Ask them why the Fed is injecting hundreds of billions of dollars into the repo market. And more than likely, they're going to say, what's the repo market? I didn't hear about this. Maybe we shouldn't be listening to those people because these are the uninformed and unprepared. It's Saturday, September 28th, 2019. I'm making this video today because I truly believe we are at one of the most, if not most, critical times in our history here in America, whether that be politically, socially, economically, and even spiritually. I believe it is so imperative that each and every one of you is preparing for what is coming to America. One thing we know for sure, uncertainty is coming to America, and each and every one of us has to be preparing. We must be getting stronger physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially for these times. And I have no doubt in my mind that this will be the biggest depression the world, not just America, but the world has ever seen. And going back to the article on the Wall Street Journal, again, Thursday night, the Fed having to pump in another $110 billion just so the banking system would not seize up on Friday morning. I want to go over an article with you today. It came out last week. It was on Reuters. Some of you may have heard this. And this is a prime example of how quickly things can happen, what happens when people are not prepared, when people are taken by surprise. This is on Reuters. Hundreds of thousands stranded as travel agency collapses. Hundreds of thousands were stranded by the collapse of the world's oldest travel firm, Thomas Cook. It's a British company, started in 1841. So this was one of the largest companies and one of the oldest companies, and it collapsed. So this too big to fail or too old to fail is nonsense. Doesn't matter. Last Monday, it failed to secure a deal with creditors or a government bailout. Could not get a government bailout. Thomas Cook had $2.1 billion of debt, had 21,000 employees. When this whole thing collapsed, leaving all these people stranded overseas, this affected the global booking websites, credit card companies, travel firms, hotels, etc. The UK civil authorities said it had fleets of planes ready to bring home more than 150,000 British customers. This is going to take 2 weeks. So again, people didn't think this could happen. It was the furthest thing from their mind. They're going on vacation, they're going to go have a good time, they're going to party, and it landed up turning into a complete nightmare. And some of these people, many of these people are still overseas, probably sleeping at airports, sleeping on the floor, running up credit cards, doing whatever they have to do to survive until a plane comes and gets them. So again, this is a prime example of how quick things can happen, how unprepared people were. They were ready to just have a good time, ready to enjoy a vacation, and all of a sudden, one of the biggest and oldest travel firms collapses, and now these people have no idea what to do, completely shock and awe, and this is how quick things can happen. Now, these people are going to get home, they're going to make it home, but just think if this was a giant bank like Deutsche Bank or a giant bank like JP Morgan or massive financial institution, a hedge fund, etc. Your problems are going to be much, much worse. Imagine it being a pension collapsing. your problems will be much, much worse than waiting for an airplane to come pick you up a week from now. That would be the least of your problems. If your pension collapses, if a major U.S. bank collapses, if Deutsche Bank collapses, we're going to see massive, massive trouble here in America. And waiting for an airplane for a week will look like a kindergarten party compared to what we're going to witness here in America when we see a massive financial institution or pension collapse. So again, how quickly things can change. 1 minute you're having a good time, you're going on vacation, you're in Cancun and you're at the beach, and 5 days later you find out the travel firm's collapsed and you don't know how to get home now. Everything's over. So think about how quickly things can change, and think about the importance of being prepared. Shocking new survey, this on Zero Hedge, finds that more Americans are completely unprepared for the next recession. What a surprise. This article, I'm going to go through this article a little bit too. Most Americans are living at the edge financially, and any sort of economic downturn will be extremely painful for tens of millions of Americans. These people won't have to worry about an airplane picking them up. They're going to be worrying about where their next meal's coming from, how they're going to make their car payment, their student loan payment, their rent payment, their mortgage payment, their credit card payment. Tens of millions of people's lives are going to be turned upside down, and it can happen instantly. If you don't have an emergency fund of any sort right now, a setback, any type of setback is going to be disastrous for you. Whether you have a couple weeks, a couple months, or a couple years, anything is better than nothing. So have some sort of emergency fund. Start putting something away. And again, these people out there go, oh, how am I going to do it? I'm broke already. Well, there's ways you can do it. Cut out your 5 Starbucks a week. Cut out buying that new car. Cut out leasing a car that is way too expensive for you. Cut some things out of your life and start saving some money. There are very dark times coming to America. Take a page out of what happened during the 2008 crisis. Millions of Americans lost their jobs at a time that most of them were living paycheck to paycheck. Suddenly, they couldn't pay the mortgages. Millions lost their homes during the subprime meltdown. Today's housing bubble is even bigger than it was back then during the 2008 collapse. We will see millions of people lose their homes again, and the banks and the elite and the 0.001% are on standby waiting for you to lose your house so that they can come buy it for pennies on the dollar and maybe even rent it back to you. I'm here to tell you that I believe that you should be carrying the minimal amount of debt, if any at all. Get it paid off if you can, or carry a small amount. But I don't think debt is going to be your friend in this next collapse either. Too many people just believe it's all going to be forgiven. Ask yourself, what if it's not? You should be hoarding stockpiles of cash and hard tangible assets like gold and silver right now, because there are going to be great deals coming up when this collapse happens. And the people who don't have debt, the people who have hard tangible assets, the people who have cash are going to capitalize on the sales. How can people not see the massive danger out there? Here we are again, people living paycheck to paycheck, another housing bubble, a bond bubble, a stock market bubble, asset bubbles everywhere, a global slowdown, a trade war, and people are completely oblivious to the dangers that are lurking out there right now. I've said this many times. You're at the beach, you see a massive dorsal fin, great white shark swimming along the beach line there, and people are still dumb enough to go in the water. And this is exactly what's happening right now. You can see the dorsal fin standing in the sand at the beach. He's out there swimming, and he's going to devour people who are oblivious to the danger. Top financial priority for Americans, 38% say it's just trying to pay their bills. 19% said it's dealing with credit cards. This means that nearly 60% of Americans' top financial priority is to find a way to just pay their bills and their credit cards. And you believe nothing bad is going to come of this? If you're struggling to pay the bills each month or you are drowning in credit card debt right now, the truth is you are not ready for a recession, let alone a depression. And I truly believe, as many of you do, this is not going to be a recession. This is going to be the greatest depression America has ever seen. Great Depression 2.0. People always tell me that they're too broke to prepare. Again, I just talked about this. Why did you buy that car? Did you really need an $80,000 car or a $100,000 SUV? Did you need 8 years of payments? Did you need a $1,000 lease payment? Do you need Starbucks 5 days a week? Do you need to go out to lunch every day? Everybody wants something today. Nobody's willing to save for it. At some point, you've got to make some sacrifices and cut some things out of your life. And sometimes you've got to cut some of the luxuries out. You got to cut some of the things that make you feel good. You got to cut it out, and you got to start saving. You got to start paying debt off. You got to start thinking smart here. Because if you don't, when this recession comes or this depression, you are going to be a massive victim here. You're going to get wiped out. And you're not going to bounce back. Nobody knows how long this recession depression is going to last. It could last a decade. It could last 2 decades. If you think that you're working hard now and working 2 side hustles just to keep your head above water, imagine what's going to happen when this recession/depression hits. If you think you have to work hard now, you're going to have to work even twice as hard to get by because you're loaded down with debt. You're in a depression. What if you lose one of your side hustles? What if you lose your job? You're going to be in big trouble because you're carrying too much debt. Debt is a killer. Do you need an 80-inch TV from Costco? Do you need a 100-inch TV? I mean, people are absolutely out of their minds. And at the end of the day, I can't say I'm going to feel sorry for these people because you can make a change right now. And 90% of the people out there will not. And so I'm not going to feel sorry for you. Right now, today, you can make a change. Another article on Zero Hedge. And please, don't hate the messenger. I'm just reporting the truth. I'm reporting reality, what's really happening. U.S. spending growth weakest in 6 months. People are getting tapped out on their credit cards. And at some point, many people in America, tens of millions of people, are going to near their limits. Now, I know people have 5, 10, maybe 15 credit cards, and they just go to the next, paying the bare minimum every month. But sooner or later, this is going to run out. And we're starting, I think, to see some of that now as spending in the U.S. is not growing. It's very stagnant. And ask yourself, if we are in this booming economy, why are we seeing spending growth not growing? It means people are getting tapped out. They're holding back, or they just have no more money to spend. This is in Bloomberg. U.S. Census finds 21.1 million not a U.S. citizen in survey. It also found that 44.7 million people here in America were foreign born. So let me repeat this one more time. This is on Bloomberg. You can verify this. The U.S. consensus finds 22.1 million people are not U.S. citizens. And guess who's paying for that? You and I. So we're going to be heading into this massive downturn. We're heading into a depression. We're going to witness a collapse here in America. And according to the U.S. Census, we have over 22 million people that shouldn't be here. And I believe that number is probably closer to 30 million people. So again, we're going to be dealing with an array of different people here in America when the lights go out, when people get hungry, when the water's not working, when the EPT goes down. Just imagine dealing with 22 to 30 million people that aren't even from this country. Article on shtfplan.com. Majority of wealthy Americans are hunkering down for a recession. If you watched my video a couple days ago when I was down in El Paseo in Palm Desert, California, very affluent area. It is the Rodeo Drive of the desert. It was apparent that the wealthy are pulling back. Close to 20% of the stores down there are vacant, and more of those stores will be vacant a year from now, without a doubt. 42% of wealthy people are increasing their cash reserves and they are exercising caution. Take a page out of their book right now. This is exactly what you should be doing. You should have an emergency fund. You should be hoarding cash, a war chest of cash and hard assets like precious metals, gold and silver, the two most undervalued assets on the planet. Do what the wealthy are doing. Do what the central banks are doing. Do what the 0.001% are doing. This is what you need to be doing too. Maybe you can't do it to the extent that they're doing it, but do what you can do. You know, put some cash away, put a couple silver coins away, put a gold coin away. Do what you can do. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. You need to start looking out for yourself. You know, too many times we're too concerned about what other people are going to think about us. You know, if we're buying security, if we're buying gold and silver, if we're saving cash and not going out and spending it, if we're not racking up our credit cards, if we're not out partying with everybody on Friday and Saturday night, we're not taking, you know, these luxurious trips. What are our friends going to think about us? What are our family members going to think about us? Stop thinking about what everybody else is thinking about you. Think about yourself and put yourself first. These people are oblivious to the dangers. Zero hedge. There's no end in sight for the retail apocalypse. That's for sure. You've seen me at some of the malls. You've seen me in Vegas. You see me just down in Palm Desert the other day. The retail apocalypse is alive and well. Goldman Sachs thinks it will get much worse. I'm going to paraphrase this article here for you. Don't just blame this on digital shopping, it says. So many people always, in the comments down below, it's all e-commerce and Amazon. That's why the retail apocalypse is taking place. The retailers are going broke because they are unable to pay back the massive amount they took on. And just like the consumer who's taking on massive debt, that's exactly what happens. You disappear, you go under, you go broke, you go out of business. And if you're a consumer living like these retailers and consuming all this debt and borrowing money you don't have to go buy stuff, you're going to end up like the retailers, gone. Another problem is the lack of disposable debt income in most households in the U.S. We just talked about that. People are getting tapped out on credit cards. Many people waking up a little bit, getting worried, looking at their bank accounts. They're dealing with massive inflation. And let me tell you this, cheapest gas out here in the desert here in Southern California that I found in the past couple days is $3.75 at Arco for regular. We are now seeing $4 gas at many of our stations out here. 25% of Americans are putting necessities such as food on credit cards. And there isn't much left to spend on retail after that. And now they're going to be spending more at the pump, as we are now seeing at some places $4 a gallon here in the desert. And I would imagine if I went up to Los Angeles or Orange County, I'm going to see $4 gas all over the place. It never ceases to amaze me the amount of manipulation and market rigging that continues in the stock market. With everything that we are watching transpire in this economy, the bad news seems to be good news for the stock market. And here's some more bad news, but don't hate the messenger. I'm just giving you reality. I'm just reporting the news to you. Steel industry in the U.S., falling stock prices, layoffs. Barber Steel in Rothburg, Michigan is closing at the end of the year. 61 people will no longer be employed there. They're closing because of declining business conditions. Although you look at China, just manufacturing massive amounts of steel. China manufactures about 52% of the world's steel. And we can't even keep a small steel mill open in Rothburg, Michigan, because of declining business conditions. U.S. steel stocks are down 75% since the tariffs. Yet China is making half the world's steel, and we continue to lose steel mills in America. And the stock market is near all-time highs. Make India great again. This is on Reuters. Lockheed has betrayed America, and they sold out the American worker. Lockheed did this to get a $15 billion contract for 114 combat planes for the Indian Air Force. Expect layoffs at the South Carolina Lockheed plant. Again, a total sellout to America and to the American worker. And I hope that this president does something about it. So as we continue to watch things continually erode here in America, more trouble in the state of Illinois. Now in the city of Peoria, taxpayers have more than doubled their year contributions to the city's police and fire pension funds to $17 million in 2007 from $7 million in 2005. The shortfall has jumped 2.7 times. But after more than $155 million in cumulative taxpayer contributions to the funds from 2005 to 2017, the shortfall in the funds nearly tripled to $275 million. More retirees than actives. More people are taking money out of these pension funds than they are putting in. And we are finding out more and more every day. The reality is that these pensions are Ponzi schemes. Salaries are outpacing the salaries of the residents who pay the public workers. So here you are making $10 an hour or $15 an hour, and somebody working at the water district is making $45 an hour, and he's going to retire at 90% of his salary. Yet the citizen of that town is not getting a pension, has no benefits, and is barely making ends meet. Why these city and state workers, are getting these gravy jobs and retiring at 90% and making, $40, $50 an hour, while the people paying them are making peanuts. Bigger salaries equal bigger pensions. At some point in the future, many of these pensions are going to be wiped out. Many of people in these pensions are going to get massive cuts, as the math just doesn't compute. You can't be paying people, a firefighter or a police officer, $80,000 or $100,000 a year that retires at 50 for the remainder of their life. It just is not mathematically possible. And at some point, the rubber is going to meet the road here, and many of these pensions are going to be in very, very big trouble. So I'm going to wrap it up right here. Before I go, I want to clarify one thing. I'm not a pessimistic person. I'm a very optimistic person. This is why I tell everybody out there to bet against the debt, because I truly believe, as an optimistic person, that we must go through this collapse, this economic collapse. We need to flush out all this bad debt. We need to flush out all these Ponzi schemes. We need to flush out all these overvalued assets. We need to flush out the illusion in order to get America financially back on track, to get back to a financial reality. And as an optimistic person, I truly believe this is going to make America a much greater and stronger country than it's ever been. And I truly believe, as an optimistic person, that if you bet against the debt, if you're saving cash, if you're stockpiling hard tangible assets like gold and silver, you are going to survive and you are going to flourish during some of the worst times in this collapse. Look, there's no doubt a collapse is coming. It's already begun. It must occur. It has to happen in order to save this country financially. And in doing so, if you're prepared for the collapse, you are going to prosper. God bless every one of you. Thanks for watching. Make sure you share this video, and I will talk to you very soon.